Hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie noob nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, before we start, caveat, my camera's doing something weird with this ink. I will attempt to fix it in post, so if things around it look slightly off, I have corrected it to ensure that the ink looks as accurate as possible. So, yeah. Today's ink is by Private Reserve, have it in sample form, Cadillac Green, which if you are an Elvis fan or know anyone who has like one of those old classic Cadillacs in green, this is so that color. It's not straight green. It's got some blue in it. It's not teal. It's not seafoam. It's not aqua, but it's green with lots of blue. It's a really lovely color. I was greatly enjoying it. Yeah, I was glad I tried it. It was pretty unique, and it was a lot of fun, but yeah. Anyways, two pens I used were these. This is a Knox Avicenna in broad, and it can be a little wet. And this is a Knox Avicenna in extra fine, and I know the camera probably, oh yeah, there it is. So the feed, no matter what I do, the feed and the nib just won't meet up properly, so the only way I can get it to work is if it's fairly wet. So it's gonna be fairly wet. There we go. Okay, let's check out the chromatography. Here's how you're supposed to do it. And you can definitely tell there's green and blue. But yeah, here's where the initial drop was put. And you can, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but there's this bare little haze of like only the teeniest hints of green. And then it goes into sort of a bright green. And then there's this very solid, brightish blue up at the top. And then I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it. And there's really not much change. There's the barest little darkening of this band down at the bottom, but everything else essentially the same. Now I thought I'd see if I could find any inks that are comparable. So here's Cadillac Green. Now admittedly I couldn't find much that was spot on because this is a fairly unique kind of color. It is green, but it's got some blue in it. It's like it hints at aqua. It's a great color, but it's unique. So here's Noodler's GI Green, which is just green, and only in the really deepest parts like even hints at blue. And here's Delamere Green, which is just green. The end. I've got nothing. Yeah, so there's that. I thought I'd see what this ink could hold up to. This is not good. Anyways, as you can see, here's with the water. The water really broke it up. Calm down, camera. Yeah. And then here's with 1/3 bleach solution, which just turned it blue, but did start to break it up. Here's with ammonia pen flesh, which broke it up, but oddly not as much as water. And here's with hydrogen peroxide, which really started to break it up, which was kind of fascinating. Now, on to the paper test. But before we do, as you know, usually when I have two of the same kind of paper in a test, it means that there was a problem. So I started out with this Sayers paper, which I brought back with me from Italy, specifically for tests, because I got this. It's hard to explain. I can't get it all on camera, but it opens up like this, and there are these little packets. See how it's like folded of Sayers paper, because people in Italy, children in school, you just hole punch these and you put them in your little binder and you use this for your homework. Yeah, and I've been meaning to get a box of this, and I did. So it was purpose bought for this. However, I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera, but can you see that? It has like these open ends, so on both sides. So someday I'll explain this, but the more paper is exposed to air, particularly the edges, the more it can affect the performance of paper. Think of it as like a slow leak in your car. The edge of paper is like a slow leak for environmental factors affecting your paper. Everywhere there's an edge to paper, it's a slow leak letting things in. But anyways, moving on. So I started with this, the Sayos paper, and for the most part, it did really, really well. There's some shading. As you can see, this is very saturated. I tested it again. Let's just go to that one. Because there were, like, as you can see, it's mostly at the edges. There's a little bit of feathering. And it's also where there's some, like, near bleed. But again, not much. Everything else is just fine. But to be fair, we're going to the other one. As you can see, there's a lot of saturation. Even in the smear, that's very solid color. You do get some shading. Now, the extra fine, which is a wet extra fine, took 12 seconds to dry, and the broad took 17. So not much difference, but still. You don't really get sheen per se. I mean, you do like around, like in a halo around the dots or around the absolute wettest parts. But yeah, you're not going to see it like everywhere. This isn't like a Diamond Majestic Blue kind of sheen. But it's a great color. There's great saturation. It is kind of long dry times because Private Reserve tends to be a very saturated ink. And this is a mildly wet flowing ink. I'd say it's a 6 out of 10. And again, that extra fine is pretty wet. So, but yeah, as the chromatography probably clued us into, not a lot of water resistance. That's really, really gone. It's just a mess. And in fact, there's like part of the T is gone, part of the W, part of the A. So that would be the opposite of fun to try and recover. Now, next up is Fabriano paper, which I'm loving because it can handle so many inks that other papers just seemingly can't. Oh, you can probably see that already. Okay, is it going to show up on camera today? That'd be nice, come on. Anyways, there's a red halo of sheen around the wettest parts, and again, you can see some lovely shading there. The camera's really turning this green. Anyways, you have halo effect, you have sheen, you've got this like richness of color. Never does it seem undersaturated, it's always solid color. I mean, look at the smears, even those are solid color, which is what I like to see. I prefer a well-shading, well-saturated ink to a well-shading undersaturated ink, like Mini J or Bond inks, as an example. But yeah, that does mean that there's more stuff in this ink. Oftentimes it does require a bit more diligent cleaning because there's more stuff in this ink. But honestly, for these results, I'll take it. So yeah, anyways, the wet extra fine took 12 seconds. The broad took 18. So not the fastest dry times, but for these results, I'll take it. I mean, this is a gorgeous color. There's great saturation. You got this wonderful contrast between this like near aqua and this like dark, rich red sheen. It's just very lovely. Anyways, oh, camera, please stop being weird. My camera, along with many other cameras, has trouble figuring out blue. So I think the blue hints in this green are just freaking it out a little bit. I apologize. But yeah, not that you can see that clearly, but it's mostly gone. But the thing is, you can read that. It would be difficult. You'd have to concentrate, but if you absolutely had to recover it, you could. Wish my camera would stop freaking out. But yeah, anyways, next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Where you still get shading, and you even get like a tiniest microscopic halo sheen in the wettest parts. Now the extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, the broad took 18. I smeared it a little bit because as I was writing I was like scooting up the page and I put my finger in it. That's human error, that's me. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread. There hasn't been on any of these papers. We are all good. But, as always, this water test is... Oh god, camera, calm down. This water test is pretty gone. It did leave, like, a puddle color. A lot of it's gone. It would be the opposite of fun to try and recover. Man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix this. I promise to do my best. But I may have to incorporate stills, or maybe I'll put them at the end to try and get a proper color correctness, because correcting color on video is actually very difficult. Anyways, here's Tomoe River paper, which is known for drawing out dry times, and it did, but not as much as I was anticipating. As you can see, the broad took 22 seconds, the wet extra fine took 14. I really hope this comes up on camera. We get a great red sheen around the halo in the wettest parts, and we get it in the writing too. It's just always easiest to get it on camera with the scrubby. Very well behaved in that there's no bleed, no feather, no spread. There might be some echo because this can be fairly dark when you lay it on heavy, and this is very thin paper, but for the most part fairly well behaved. I did say that it can you can smear the sheeny parts when it's freshly dry, but now, I mean, I'm really putting my pressure on it, and we got nothing. We are good. Now, this paper loves to let ink slide away when you add more water, and that's definitely what happened here. What remains is actually pretty green, and the puddle is kind of blue, and it's really gone. You can barely see it, but yeah, it's kind of there. Now, the next 3 tests, I only use the extra fine, except to write the name, because generally that's how I like to do this. The smaller nib, or the gentler nib, does the cheap paper. The thing is, that extra fine was so wet in order to work that it almost negated that fairness. Oy vey. Anyways, this is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. And what's fascinating is you can barely tell the difference between that broad and this extra fine, because there is just insane levels of spread. I mean, look at this. This is the extra fine on here, and it is the same size as the broad on Tomoe River. Yeah, and as you can tell, there is no shading left at all. It has gone monochromatic. However, it is still very much that Cadillac Green color. A lot of times, the absorbent papers tend to suck out some of the vibrancy. That does not happen here. It is very bold, very much the color it's supposed to be. It took half a second to dry. It is a bit woolly. It is pretty darn feathery, but yeah, and it's pretty darn bleedy. Yeah, you can practically read it from the other side. And again, there's just as much in the broad as there is in the extra fine, so... Now this water test is amazing. Like, oh, actually the camera freaking out is letting me find the actual writing. There's W-A-T-E-R-T-E-S-T. Wow. In real life, you can't see that. Look at the back. Man, this is tie-dye. This is insane. That was fun. Anyways, Mead Notebook Paper. It's thinner than 20-pound copier paper. It's cheaper. They sell it in pharmacies. They gave it to us for free for our lab notebooks in high school. It tends to outperform the 20-pound copier paper lately, and this time it kind of did. For the most part, there's not as much bleeding. For some reason there was up here. Oh, I crossed something out and that's the broad. Anyways, there is feathering though. Lately, for some reason, this Mead notebook paper has been feathering like crazy. Now, it did take 1.5 seconds to dry. There's not nearly as much spread. The line width did not explode. It did a little bit, but not as bad as a 20-pound copier paper. And again, look at that water test. That is crazy. Letters are overlapping. That's amazing. Anyways, lastly is Moleskine notebook paper, which I hate because it hates ink. I don't know why it took 2 seconds to dry. It obviously sucked in the ink because look at how wet and woolly that looks. It looks like somebody took a ball of yarn and like dunked it in a horse trough or something. It's just blech. Anyways, it's a gross texture. And then, I mean, just look at the writing. Look at all that bleeding and feathering and just, ugh, it's nasty looking. This is not flattering. And for some reason, I feel like it brought out more of the green on this paper. I mean, maybe it's the cream color, but it didn't really do that with the Tomoe River. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this isn't extra fine, but it was very wet. And this is slightly wet flowing ink, but still, that is nuts. I mean, it rendered onto the page below all over. There, and there, and there. And I remember, because I started to get worried up at the top, and then down at the bottom, I started like making sure that I was like using as little pressure as possible. So it got a little bit better, but not by much. I mean, you can practically read that from the back. But check out this water test. That is crazy. That's kind of fun to look at. It's insane. But yeah, for the absorbent papers, you're out of luck. Reading that is not going to be fun or easy or possibly even possible. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so there you go for your consideration. There's Private Reserve's Cadillac Green. I will do my best to color correct and bring you the most accurate rendering of this ink, because it really is, if you are at all familiar with that Cadillac green color, you know, with Elvis's big old car, that is what this is. It is not a straight green. It's got some blue in it. This is a wonderfully saturated ink. On the right papers, it will sheen beautifully. It's got this almost like maroon red color. The contrast is fantastic. Yeah, I am so glad that I tried some of this. I think I'm going to see if I can get it in cartridges so that, you know, when I'm traveling or whatever, I can bring it with me. But yeah, so there you go for your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.